And now we're going to bring up our next speaker. The topic is Meri Body, Meri Choice, and it's going to be presented by Namita Krul-Taneja. She is the founder and CFO of Meri Body, which is an organization working towards educating millions of adolescents on menstruation and female body literacy in the world. She's based in Netherlands. She is the winner of International Alliance for Women's 2013, World of Difference, 100 Global Award, and nominated Distinguished Alumni 2014 from Rotterdam School of Management. She combines her present job as a financial analyst at one of the top banks, 5 banks in the Netherlands, with her groundbreaking entrepreneurial work to create social impact in India. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Namita.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anima. Am I audible? Are you able to hear me properly, everybody? I hope so.
So by saying yes on the chat box, you can say yes, you can hear.
Great, great, wonderful for that. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Evert. That's wonderful of you. I enjoyed Sarbani's presentation a lot. Thank you for sharing, Sarbani. Sanitation is absolute identification in not in open areas, but controlled is a very important subject within the social impact environment. And something that's also very important and very dear to my heart is to share the knowledge of periods and how you cope with it between your 12th year to 50th year for girls. So without further ado, I'd like to move forward, and let me see if I can share my, oh, I believe that you're sharing my, there you go. I can see what's happening here. Great. Thank you for sharing my presentation. I'd like to make this a conversation. I'd like to make this 40 minutes a dialogue instead of a monologue. And I'll try to keep it just to the basic facts of what we think is the main reason behind our saying Meri Body is Meri Choice, which means, and for the Indian audience, at this moment, they would understand Meri means my, so it's my body and it's my choice. Now, my choice in connection with healthcare, in connection with taking care of your periods, in connection with understanding what the hormonal changes lead to from adolescent to womanhood. And that's what I'd like to share with everybody as well. So I'd like to, and how does technology impact how does it impact it, and what are we doing for it? So let's see if I can share the slides. There you go. But before we start talking about the eHealth app that we have created in multi-languages with animation films, we'd like to understand, go back to the basics and understand what you think about technology. So just a basic answer. Can you please use your chat box or raise your hand when I ask you some questions? But on this, at this moment, I'd like to know from you on the scale of 1 to 10, how important does the audience think that technology is at this given time? I'd like to see some numbers, please. Can you share them with me? Do you think technology is a 6 at this moment as important, whether it's 10, whether it's, and am I seeing a chat box? Well, thank you very much. An 8, I'm getting here. Anyone else? Why is it so important for us at this moment? There you go, a 7. Right, there's no lower. But if I was to ask the same question to, right, a 6, a 10, it's a variable. But if I was to ask this question to an adolescent in a low educated area, in a rural area, they would look at me and they might think, well, we see a technology as the phone we have in our hands, but how to use that to make social impact, that would be a question that they wouldn't understand. So what are we talking about at this moment? How do you define social impact, right? So how do you define? Now, the theory about social impact is that um, there are so many definitions that there's a lack of consensus about how to define social impact. And the best one that I could associate with myself was that social impact is the effect on people and communities that happens as a result of an action, an inaction, an activity, but it has to do with communities and it has to do with social challenges. But how do you measure it? How do we know how much? And over time, how do you know it's, there are 13 methods of measuring social impact. And if I bring that back again to my subject about poverty, about period poverty, about eradicating taboo, how do I measure whether the young girls that I'm trying to teach to understand about body literacy is really impacting their lives? Well, to share, and then over time, how do you do that? Let me start with a story. Let me share a story. And I'll tell you something a bit more about my background in a bit. But one of the things that I've done in the past 10 years when I started social entrepreneur, to be a social entrepreneur, was to set up a workspace in Delhi where women would come, they would learn, and they would earn living by products that they made, which we sold in the Netherlands and UK and USA and all other countries. So the mother is sick, and I used to encourage the children to come as well. They saw me as a role model, and they wanted to sit with me and talk with me because, I was someone who had gone from India to a foreign country and had made it in their eyes, right? So this girl, 12 years old, she comes to me and she says, and they call me Didi. So she says, Didi, can you please talk to my mom? And I said, well, tell me, what's bothering you? She says, you know what? I want to have computer lessons. Well, you can have computer lessons. Are they teaching that at school? Yes, they are. We've got 2 classes. And so each class has 2 classes. So class 8 had 2, A and B. And she was put into the home science class and not into the computer science class. And she wanted to learn about computers. Now I'm talking about marginalized people, right? Like they would get like 5,000 rupees per month to earn. Like it's a very low income community. But then she said that, my teacher said, no, you're already divided in this class, so you can't go into another class, and so you won't get computer lessons. And she was there to convince me to talk to her mother to say, please let her have computer lessons. So I went to the mother and I said, can you please give her extra tuition lessons? To which she said, oh, well, yes, I can. I said, what would it cost? She said 500 rupees. Now, 500 rupees in euros is like under 10 euros, right? So I looked at her and I thought, well, okay, and then she was convinced, the mother was convinced. So the child got computer lessons. Long story short, she's now earning a living as a software engineer. This is an example of how would I measure this, social impact over time. It takes years to do so, but it does happen. That's an example that I was giving. So we come back to this new normal where we're in at this moment, and the current pandemic situation that is leading us to embrace technology in the way that we wouldn't do before. Because I just gave you an example of being in Delhi, being in India, this girl coming to me. I did field visits. I sat with women on the ground. I was able to talk to them, understand about their needs. But in this new pandemic, it's not happening. We cannot travel, and so technology has become a means for us to reach the society that needs our help to have social impact through this digital channel. And I think that this is just the beginning of the socio-technical conversion. And I'm glad that it's at this moment that we created the Meri Body app as well. Because with this mobile app, we will be able to, and we are already connecting with school children who are already engaged in online education. They've learned to do so because there's no other form with the lockdown. There's no other form to have education than to have it on online. And we are training young adolescents. So our target group, I forgot to mention just before, is 12 to 18 years at this moment, because we think that by gaining knowledge, by transferring information, they'll be able to experience what it is to understand about periods, about menstruation, about cycle tracking, about fertility. Well, under 18 years old, I'd not speak too much about fertility, but I do want to make them understand that there's a cycle of 28, 30 days in which there are different stages within the cycle. So the basic knowledge, transferring the basic knowledge would be very, very important so that the girls can learn. And the whole thought behind their learning and gaining knowledge is that when they know what the body is functioning and doing, they can make informed choices. And that's all about choices, about Meri Body. So you would have the freedom to understand that, when your periods are almost about to start, you take a sanitary pad with you. When you're having cramps just before your periods start, you're forewarned about it. That's the thought behind it. So before I go much, much further talking about the Meri Body app and why we think, just let me share a bit about myself. I'm Indian born, based in the Netherlands. I started my entrepreneurial journey 10 years ago, and I did so by starting to co-found Work Shelter. I gave you just an example of that. In the Netherlands, I founded also another company called New Yardsticks. And New Yardsticks has to do with the measurement element. You can't measure return on investments like you do in the banking sector, where I have my day job as well, but you do it with New Yardsticks. I helped found organization called Bridge to Hope at this moment, was working with women who needed skills and education after they have been after they were able to be freed from sex trafficking, from human trafficking. And all this led to my work experience. And fast forward 2-3 years ago, I was invited by the FHI 360, that's funded by the Bill Gates Foundation, to work towards an inception, towards a workshop for 3-4 days about contraceptive technology. And that's when it triggered. That's when 3 things happened, and why I chose to work towards dealing with menstruation and educating young girls. So the first thing was that I heard, and I was shocked to hear that women in India, and mostly people nod their heads when I say so, women in India think that when you're having your periods, that's when you're fertile. I said, that's not true. That's basic biology. We get it all, get the information at a young age. Even at school, you get that information. No, in India, the low educated women think that you can be fertile when you're having your period on the first 5 days. The second thing I heard was that there's hardly any usage of anti-conception by the women. They don't know. Even a suppository that does just cost 10 rupees is unknown. The women can use it herself. So Vani was just talking about condoms as well. It's only used if the men want it. If they don't want it, then it's not done, right? So the second thing what happened to me was when I was at the work shelter 2-3 years ago was that a lady came for an interview, and she wanted to have a job with us. And I looked her in the eye and I knew that something was wrong with her. I just knew it. So I kept probing and asking her what was. And then she told me she had 2 children. Her husband was jobless, and she couldn't feed another mouth. So she had had 7 abortions in 1 year. Can you imagine what it does to your body? 7 abortions in 1 year. Her husband would not refuse to use condoms, and she had no knowledge that the suppository for 10 rupees would be enough for her to make sure that she didn't get pregnant the next day. Here we're talking about lack of knowledge, lack of basic knowledge. And so I decided to do something about it, and that's when Meri Body app was created. So Meri Body app, and I created that, and we've developed the MVP, we've developed the minimal viable product, and I went with it last year to schools and to NGOs and to see that, and to test, to validate that the information that's in the app is good enough for the women and the children that you see in the sheet at this moment. So the children that are still learning, the children who are working at the NGOs, the young girls who might or might not be about to get married. And to my surprise, I also learned that after some probing, it became easier for the teachers to talk about the same subject while the children were in the same call, while they were in the same session. And the thing that really struck to me was that the need to understand is so high that it is, I'm thankful the technology can bring this knowledge to them at this moment. And I'll share some of the experience that the girls have. But one of the experience that one of the girls told me within the uniform was she stood up. She couldn't hold it anymore, and with tears in her eyes, she was crying, and she was saying, what happened to me? And she shared her first experience. And that's when I knew that the mobile app is just, is not only a means to reach the young people and to make impact, but it also gives them a space to discuss, to talk, to have the app as a friend who can give you knowledge. And that's what really triggered. So why do I do what I do? And how does that involve you as the audience as well? I'm sure that each one of us, the panelists and the attendees, understand that the freedom that we have in this Western world is taken for granted. But the freedom of choice, the freedom of movement, the freedom of being able to decide, take steps, whether it's in your education, whether it's in your daily life, even simple things about being able to go to the shop and to be able to buy sanitary pads without feeling shamed about it because there's a male behind the counter instead of a woman. That freedom that I'm talking about, that is gold, right? And it's my determination, and I'm hoping, and I'm almost certain that it would be yours as well, to be able to shift gears for the uneducated women, for them to be able to make life-lasting changes and life-lasting impacts. And that's when some people ask me, why do you do what you do? Because you have an easy life over here. You've got a job, you've got children, you've got husband, you've got a house, whatever. Why do you do it? Well, it's not because I want to be a role model so necessary, but there's a huge drive in me. There's a drive, there's an action-driven motivation that says, we can't do it alone. We have to do it together. We have to collaborate. We have to be able to build communities with that. I've just given you some examples of what happened at the work shelter, and these are just shocking realizations that while you're working with marginalized women in India, we also understand that girls drop out of school because of menstruation, right? They also they also feel the need to talk about the subject, but they aren't able to do that. Um, some statistics about girls. Can you imagine that India is a land, if we talk about demography, 25, sorry, 50% of the population is under 25 years. 65%, we're talking about 2/3 of the population of India is under 35 years. And would you understand it if 71% of adolescents remain unaware about menstruation? Or, to come back to Shabani's topic, 40% of schools don't have separate female toilets. In fact, Sabani, I think we should have a conversation after this event. But 40% of schools don't have separate female toilets, and we're working with schools. And if they don't have that, and they don't have they don't have products, or they don't have the means to dispose of their pads, then it becomes a huge problem for them. Luckily, with the Modi government and the introduction of the Digital India scheme, things are changing. With the introduction of the life science and healthcare agenda that the Prime Minister's office has. In fact, on Independence Day, 15th of August, he reminded us how important it is to think about hygiene. And he was talking about the young and low-income communities as well. So the arena is set at this moment. The COVID situation has made it possible for people who weren't used to working online to do that as well. So we can tackle and resolve the challenges. It's time to do so. And it's not only time to do so. If you can imagine that, we are collaborating with NGOs, we're collaborating with corporates, we're collaborating with medical organizations and governments. And what we're talking about is education, health, and empowerment of women, right? So that makes it that easier for us to be able to reach outcomes through through working on social challenges, right? Now, let me share a bit about the mobile app. First of all, this mobile app has got various languages. So it's not only in English or in Hindi, but it's in Punjabi and Marathi as well. It gives you very basic knowledge about fertility, periods, contraception, intercourse, pregnancies, and it's free to download. Now, talking about the business model in this case makes it a bit difficult because we all know that adolescents don't have any income, but they are our target audience. So we have to make it reachable to them and make the threshold as low as possible to do that. And that's where we thought that we'd put it on the Play Store. We've developed it in Android at this moment, and there's much, much more that we need to do about it. But at this moment, we're having about 1,000 to 1,500 users increase per week. And you know why and that's from April on, end of April, we started this, and that's from that point on that we've got this. And you know why we've got it? It only validates what we've been thinking about till now as well. The need is high. It's a huge need for children to be able to understand that, and to be able to understand it in their language, and to be able to understand it in their level of education. So these are a few features. You saw this picture before as well. These are a few features of the app that we have screened over here. It gives a bit of a knowledge about the uterus, what the uterus does. We've tried to make it as friendly. The pictures are as friendly as possible, but we've made it in a storytelling way. So here you have a young adolescent, a young girl, Seema, who's just started her periods, and she goes to her aunt, you know, the Masi, like you won't dare to talk about it with your mother, but you will talk about it with an elder sister or with your Masi, because it just makes it easier, because you feel less of a shame talking about it. That's the experience what the young Indian girls have shared with us. So they go to the Masi and they ask questions. Why is it happening to me? What is my body doing? Can you please explain to me that what can I do? I think I'm, you know, I don't understand why I'm bleeding. And Aunt Vidya takes her by the hand and hand holding her shows her and explains to her the different phases within the month and how can she track her cycle and how can she make sure that she understands what she could do. So this is an app, and because of digital India and because of the demography of India, and because we've understood that lots and lots of young adolescents already have an app, it makes the threshold for them to understand it so much lower and so much easier. Um, what I'm sorry, but I've lost track of time, so I hope I've still got some time left. It's
Oh yeah, you're good on time, Namita. You go ahead. No worries.
Thank you very much about that. Well, so in summary, what we've done is we've connected with NGOs, we've connected with organizations. I've recently connected with a huge organization called Masterpiece. Masterpiece has got um, is working in 40 countries and is working towards helping to join companies and organizations with each other to have a synergy effect. And so with their introduction, I've been training school kids and teachers in the Bhubaneswar area, in the Orissa area. And they have shared with us the advantages that they're already having after 3, 4, 5 sessions. The first session was used to make it the space that we were talking in easier for them to talk about it, and in the second and the third lessons we showed them a bit about general about periods, what it was. In the fourth lesson we introduced the app, and by the time it was the fifth lesson, the teachers and the students are going to Play Store, downloading the app and using it as well. The trainings are based on the fact that we understand that the gains will be achieved by inspiring the younger generation. And if they can understand, and if they can use the knowledge, then there will be a positive impact in life. And just being able to talk about it makes them stronger. It builds resilience, and that's when the freedom of choice comes in the way. Now, the freedom of choice, as I also mentioned to you before, was, you know, this girl of 12 years old, she came to me, Kanishka, her name is, and Kanishka said, please talk to my mother because I want to have computer lessons. And because she was able to understand, and of course we talked about periods and other things as well, but because she could get that, she got mainstream access to technology. But technology then brings more than only healthcare, only her education level, only it improves her life to the maximum. We believe that there are many, many goals that we want to reach, as you may see on the left side of the picture, you know, who have been married young as well, not have enough education, because in the rural areas we know as well, they leave school quite soon after they start menstruating, and they start the married life. And even for those girls, it's so much important to understand about their bodies. We'd like them, instead of sitting behind the kitchen, you know, cooking and everything, to be able to access knowledge in such a way that they would gain experience by that and change their lives as well. I've shared a lot of things and a lot of information about it, and I would like to take questions, if there are any questions at this moment. And I'm sorry, but I don't see the questions at this moment.
Yes,
So
I'll read it out for you,
yes,
Namita. Yeah,
please.
I think there are a few questions. So the
Yes.
first one is this issue deals with educating young women. How about educating men as well?
Oh, thank you so much for this question. I always sit and wait for this question to come. Yes, it's a big yes. We have to educate the boys and the fathers and men. And in fact, things are changing, because we have this Indian cricket team that I believe they're called the Rajasthan Royals, who've now got the emblem of the sanitary pads. It's called Nine, I think, on the back of their shirts. They're promoting it. But it's not only wearing a shirt that would help. Even with the schools, we are going to speak to the mothers, but we're also going to speak with the brothers and the fathers. And in fact, I've had sessions with the global Noida Shapers where a father was sitting and joining this session with his 15-year-old child. How beautiful is that? Yes, we have to. We have to educate. But you have a starting point somewhere. And being a woman myself, I found it easier to start with girls.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's very important because it's a total societal change that needs to be driven, and educating young women to take control of their own bodies, as your app is all about, is important. But I think the education of the ecosystem around the individual is also as important. So yeah, thanks for that question. The next question is, and again, because this is a technology, leveraging technology, so there are a couple of questions which are related to technology usage. And now, typically for an app to gain a huge usage, there needs to be gamification. Is this something that you've started looking at?
Yes. So yes, we have. We've thought of different ways of improving the content as well. To be honest, it also boils down to funding. See, the app is free of charge. It's free to download. So we depend at this moment with grants and subsidies, and we depend on support from corporates to be able to change it, right? Gamification will come, absolutely. Another thing that will come with it will be a chat box in it as well. I think that it's important for someone using the app to not only be able to read, but the questions pop up, like they're just popping up just now. And you want to have the answer, and you don't want to wait for the answer, or someone to have another session or whatever. So what we're trying to do is we're going to put a chat box in it that there will be an immediate answer after that. And we want to have gynecologists helping us answer the questions. And if there's a medical need, then because this is not a medical app as such, but if there's a medical need, then we would be able to guide the user to the nearest clinic where they can get help at their local centers. So yes.
Okay, brilliant. I think, yeah, gamification is important. I mean, this is one area where we've been sort of dabbling as well. And what we find is gamification can get you that exponential sort of growth of user base, especially because there's always competition amongst human beings, and they essentially want to use points gained, or that's how whether it's the TripAdvisors or Uber or whatever, some of the Amazon, some of these apps have used gamification quite well. You mentioned about Rajasthan Royal. And I think that's next question is connected with that. Now, obviously, getting a celebrity to endorse a product can get you that mileage, but there is an in between, let's say, between a conventional approach versus a celebrity approach called influencer marketing. What's your view of using influencer marketing for an app like yours?
It has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that you can have a absolute growth. You can have a user growth. The question then arises is, But is that the target group that you're wanting to aim to, or is it just because someone said that when you're transferring knowledge, you want it to settle in as well. You want someone to be able to absorb it as well. Then, so yes, it'd be an absolutely gain to have the influencer, um, and I would prefer to have it for the long term as well, so we can go hand in hand and see that we're really targeting the right audience. So yes.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah. So, okay, no, I think that's a good one, and I think from some of the things that you mentioned, and especially because your app is kind of in, let's say, just after beta stage, you launched in April. There
Right.
are people who would like to connect with you. In fact, we also know people who potentially could be helpful as well. And of course, your friend Sarvani is still there. I think you probably need to have a conversation, but.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but let's look at any other question from the audience or any chat, because I think this is extremely important. I think this is one of those subject areas that doesn't get spoken that much, and yet it is so close to every one of us. So this is your moment. We are ahead of time by a couple of minutes, so we're good to have more questions at this stage.
Right. And while we're waiting for the questions, let me just point out that I'm absolutely open to collaborating. Our team can't do it alone. So the more we collaborate, the more we want. Our ambition is to reach out to millions of women. So we have the need to be able to collaborate. So anybody who wants to do this can do it in different ways. We're doing it through, we're starting a crowdfunding campaign. In fact, it started today. So please, if you would go to www.meribody.com, then you could see what it's all about. Besides that, we've got social media handles. We are on Insta, we are on Facebook, and we are on LinkedIn as well. I can be approached by my phone number, a mail, drop a mail to me, and be sure that to reach out to us, and share what you would want to do as well, and how you would want to contribute as well. So that'd be great. And I'm absolutely open to having a conversation after this event, after today together, and to be able to understand how we can form synergy effects as well, because that's what social impact is about, right? This is not my challenge. It's not your challenge. This is a challenge of millions of young girls and men who need our help.
Absolutely, and in fact, just extending on that, maybe we'll have a session next year where your app would have evolved a bit more, because I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to social impact topics, we do spend a considerable amount of time talking about the social problem, but not as much on the technology side of things, because that's where our today's topic is. So
Right.
what Insta images do you use for what's the purpose, what's the goal? I think people, there's a genuine lack of awareness and dearth of material about those specific aspects, because I'm sure almost all the people who are there, as well as outside people who are watching us on Facebook, would also be saying this. Yes, they acknowledge the existence of social problem, but a lot of those people have this question as in how to go about it. And I think that's
Exactly.
where, yeah.
Exactly. It's very often that, people admire me saying, oh my gosh, I wish I was doing what you're doing. It's admirable what you're doing. Yes, it is. And we can't all turn into, the life of an entrepreneur is not that easy. It's not, you have to make tough decisions and whatever. No, not everybody has to become an entrepreneur as well, right? But you can still pitch in, and then you can still have that action driven motivation to do something. And I don't want to talk too much about monetary things, but for a small amount, you can do a lot as well, right? So, and with your knowledge, with your networks, with connecting with someone else who's working in that field, it helps. It all helps. So I applaud everybody who would like to connect and be helpful.
Thank you so much, Namita, for sharing your app and your thoughts on this topic, a very, very important topic. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our virtual hands together for Namita.
Thank you so very much. It's been my pleasure to have this conversation as well. And thank you very much for giving me the platform at this time. Thank you, audience, for being there, for listening in, and I'll stay online yet and follow the full program. Thank you very much.
Excellent. And for people, you know, she already shared her address online. You can get in touch with her, and also, you know, you can get in touch with us as well. We can help connect you with Namita. You know, some people will be joining us later. Some people will be looking or watching it through Facebook at a later stage, and or the YouTube videos which we'll be producing later on. So thank you once again, Namita.